Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus the Korean Zombie, also known as Chan Sung-jung. This is a special episode because I'm posting this in the afternoon instead of the morning or night, depending on when I usually post these. But it's a special episode because I was supposed to wake up at 4 a.m. my time to watch this. Now, I did, but then I went back to sleep, and then eventually woke up at 8 o'clock and then started watching the fights. And I think that was the best option because, guys, when I first turned on this fight night, the first person I saw was Michael Bisping. And I knew I was in for a treat because Michael Bisping can't score a card to save his life. Michael Bisping can't talk about fights to save his life. Michael Bisping is pound for pound the worst color commentator in all of history. And I knew I was going to have a problem. Now, granted, a lot of these fights were finishes, so thankfully I didn't get to hear him too much. But we'll point him out as we go through this fight card. But let's just start off with the fact that there are no robberies. I want to make that abundantly clear. No one got robbed, including Spann, and we'll get to that fight in a second because, before I got here, I looked online a little bit, and there's a segment of people just saying, man, Spann got robbed. Not even close. The commentary, especially in the third round, suggested he got robbed. Not even close. We'll get to it, and we'll dissect it all down. But first, and the only thing, honorable mentions. First honorable mention is Choi versus Errens. All right, I had this 29-28. First round and the third round go to Choi. Second round goes to Errens. Put a close marker on the second round. You could argue maybe a 30-27 for Choi, but I didn't. In the first round, Choi outstruck Errens. Simple. Second round, both of them had a takedown. Errens had some ground and pound, while Choi also had more ground and pound, in my opinion, but he got dropped. So that's where the closeness comes in, right? He gets dropped pretty early, but Choi gets a takedown and then proceeds to stay on top of him for the rest of the round, but he doesn't land enough ground and pound to where I can comfortably give him that round. The round still goes to Errens, in my opinion. You then go to, but it's close. You can kind of argue it either way, honestly. Then the third round, Choi outstrikes Errens on the feet and has some ground and pound as well. You go to the judges' scorecards. Ben Cartledge has it 30-27. All three rounds to Choi. That second round is fine. You can maybe argue it for Choi because he basically spent 2 minutes on top of Errens after he got dropped. I don't think he landed enough ground and pound, but that's whatever. Mark Collette, his scorecard reflects mine, 29-28. And then Vito Paillo, also his scorecard reflects mine as well. Next honorable mention is Liang versus Aldrich. Okay, this fight ended in a TKO in the second round for Aldrich. There was parts where Aldrich was on top of Liang, and she wasn't as active as I wanted her to be, and then finally she fucking turned it on, and boom, she gets the TKO finish. In that first round, Liang had 2 takedowns, right? She was just spamming takedowns pretty much. But she was kind of getting a little outstruck on the feet. Aldrich had 1 takedown with some ground and pound, and she outstruck Aldrich on the feet as well. This round was interesting because it starts off with Liang kind of getting outstruck. They're close on strikes, relatively speaking. Liang then goes and gets her 2 takedowns, but does nothing with them. Aldrich then gets a takedown, actually lands some decent ground and pound, and she was outstriking her on the feet. This is her round. This is 100% her round. You go to the judges' scorecards where I guess just this fight night should be marred by optics because there's some rounds in here where some people just decide body language, and this is what pisses me off, especially if you point out that Bautista-Blackshear fight where apparently body language wins fights now, as opposed to a deceptive body. I'm skipping to another fight. Spann, who has a deceptive body language of being tired. It's insane how these guys have fought for years, and the commentary couldn't analyze the fact that Spann was tired. Spann has no cardio. Spann has zero cardio. It makes sense why when people say, "Hey, all his fights are in the first round." You know, there's a fight tonight. I believe it was Nakazuma. Yeah, it was Nakamura. Excuse me, Nakamura versus Garcia, where they're basically implying that Nakamura has a bunch of finishes in the first round. His fights don't leave the first round. The implication is that if he goes past the first round, will he be able to keep this pace? He did. He obviously did. But it's insane how they don't analyze the same thing on Spann, which is if Spann goes past the first round, he's a fucking sitting duck. But we'll get to that. I keep skipping over. Back to the Aldrich fight. All right. Howie Booth and Luke Hill, honorable mention to both of those two, give the first round to Liang. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. She only gets 2 takedowns, gets outstruck on the feet, doesn't do anything on bottom. Doesn't do anything on top. Gets outstruck by Aldrich and gets hit with some ground and pound by Aldrich. It's insane that they gave her this round. Honorable mention to those two. And then Dave Leatherby has the right scorecard, which is 10-9 to Aldrich. We go to the next honorable mention. We go to the next honorable mention, and that is all the way Blanchfield versus Santos. Before we even get to this fight, quick tidbit about this. This fight, starting with the first round, starts off with basically Blanchfield, and I had this, I don't know if it's recorded, but I had this criticism of Blanchfield back in the Andrade fight, where everyone was just like, oh, she's landing on Andrade. Everyone lands on Andrade. But it's not that. It's the way she was landing on Andrade. Even in the Aldrich fight, Aldrich was outstriking her, I believe, in that first round before Blanchfield was able to use her grappling and mix in the striking and the grappling together, which eventually got her the victory. Blanchfield's striking is not good. It's okay. And it was exposed in this fight in the sense that Santos was outstriking her heavy in that first round, but she was outstriking her well to the point where Blanchfield was like, oh no, I'm going straight to the grappling. To the point where her grappling was ineffective. And we'll get to certain points, but her grappling was very ineffective to where Blanchfield resorted to the one part of women's MMA that we all hate and loathe, which is the clinch game. Right? The clinch game is something you see a lot of shitty fighters go to immediately because right, they're getting outstruck on the feet, they can't grapple well, so boom, it's clinch game stuff. She couldn't grapple her and she couldn't strike with her. Instant clinch game, and she won based off of the clinch game, and we'll talk about that. I had this 29-28. Third round, I put a close marker on. I'll explain it in a second. But I had this 29-20, the last 2 rounds to Blanchfield, the first round to Santos. In that very first round, Santos is outstriking Blanchfield. She's outstriking her clear. She's up on strikes. Blanchfield tries to grapple a little bit, but she realizes she's still getting outstruck. In this round, Santos has enough cardio to kind of get out of these positions and then still continue to outstrike her. This round belongs to Santos. You go to the second round where Santos is outstriking Blanchfield on the feet. In total, she outstrikes her barely, right, by like 4 strikes. But here's where we get into Blanchfield winning this. Blanchfield gets a takedown with some ground and pound, and then in the majority of this round, she's just stronger. It's wild to say, but she's just stronger than Santos. Blanchfield is stronger than Santos, and she holds her in the clinch and just continues to be active in the clinch. She uses the dreaded women's MMA clinch game and beats her in the clinch in this round. If we just take away the clinching, right? If we take away the clinching in this round and we just be fanciful here and say that Blanchfield just gets that takedown with a little bit of ground and pound, and then the rest of the round is on the feet, we're probably looking at a Santos round 2 because of just the way she was striking with Blanchfield. But it doesn't end up that way. You go to the third round, where it's decisively close, but you have to give it to Blanchfield due to the fact that Santos barely outstrikes Blanchfield on the feet by about 2 strikes, really. She's outstriking her at the top of the round, barely, and then by the end of the round, Blanchfield starts to land on her, but she's still Blanchfield is still gets outstruck in total, but you put those two with the fact that the remaining rest of the round is Blanchfield consistently putting Santos against the cage and not letting her get out and then outstriking her in the clinch. The majority of this round is in the clinch. It's just in the clinch, and it's just Blanchfield being super, super, super fucking active to the point where Santos doesn't land enough on the feet to deter what happened in the clinch, and that round goes to Blanchfield. You go to the judges' scorecards. And it's pretty much the same thing. Howie Booth, Ben Cartledge, and Luke Hill all have it 29-28, given the last two rounds to Blanchfield. And there you go. And that's how you have it. Another interesting thing about this fight is we bring up Michael Bisping, our favorite character on the show, where I want to say there's many times in this fight night where the stats are brought up, and sometimes the stats are a little inflated, right? But tonight they were kind of close to fair, actually. They were close to fair. They were a little inflated on some of them. We'll get to Anthony Smith's one in a second. But tonight, we go straight to the post-fight where Bisping is interviewing. I fucking hate Bisping. Let's just put that out there. I dislike how Bisping characterizes things and says things. It doesn't make any sense. All night tonight, someone is outstriking someone 3-1, and he's going, it's close. Man, they really have to do something to take this. What the fuck are you talking about? But I'm sorry, I'm getting mad over myself. Post-fight interview. He's interviewing Blanchfield, and he says to Blanchfield, he says in the first round. It's not like he says in the second or the third, where obviously the thing he's about to say doesn't happen, but he says, she was swinging wildly. Later tonight, he says to Holloway, Jen Sun Jung, the Korean Zombie, was swinging recklessly. Now, whether that's true or not, in reference to the Korean Zombie, you're not supposed to say that, but whatever, he says that. In the Blanchfield fight, he says Santos was swinging wildly, implying that she was missing. And she was like, did any of those shots hurt? Right? And I thought Blanchfield was going to give, the typical shitty answer of, no, none of them hurt her. But shout out to Blanchfield for this. She says the correct thing, which is, quote, she says, no, none of them hurt, but I knew I was getting outstruck, which is why I went straight to the grappling. Amazing answer. But Bisping had to jump in and just go, oh my God, Santos was swinging wildly. What the fuck are you talking about? She was outstriking her by, I want to say, 13, 15 strikes in that first round. And you're clean. She wasn't windmilling shit. She wasn't windmilling anything. She wasn't looking like some shitty fighter. She was landing good on her. But whatever. Michael Bisping. We go to the next honorable mention. And it's Nakamura versus Garcia. I had this 30-27. For Nakamura. In that first round, Nakamura outstruck Garcia, had a takedown with some ground and pound, and a submission attempt. Garcia was very active on bottom, but it wasn't enough. Nakamura was landing elbows here and there, and he was fairly active on top. It takes a while for sometimes these guys take 10 years to get active on top, but whatever, he was active enough. Second round, Nakamura outstruck Garcia, had a takedown with ground and pound. Garcia had a submission attempt, but it wasn't fully in to where it really impacted the round or the fight. Third round, Nakamura outstruck Garcia again. He also had a takedown with ground and pound. You go to the judges' scorecards. Vito Paillo had it 30-27. Clemens Warner had 30-27. And the Mark Collette had it 30-26. I usually don't give honorable mentions for 10-8. This is fucking stupid. It's absolutely nuts. It's ridiculously stupid. It's just a routine. He outstruck Garcia. He had a takedown with some ground and pound. It's not like he fucking unloaded on Garcia. He landed occasional ground and pound. And Garcia was squirming on the bottom. He was active on the bottom. And he wrote this as a 10-8 honorable mention to Mark Collette. That's a stupid scorecard. We go to the next honorable mention, okay? And that's the one that, this is the most important one. This is the most important one. Smith versus Spann. Online, there's a segment of people that are going crazy, thinking this is a robbery. This is the most uncontroversial. This shouldn't be a split decision. And for some reason, let me start off with commentary real quick. Just stupid. Where am I at? Let me start off with commentary. All right, Bisping in the third round. Before we even get started with this card, in the third round, goes, "This round is close." He doesn't say that at the top. He doesn't say that at the top of the round where Smith is slightly outstriking Spann. He says this when Smith is up 12 strikes on Spann. Then by the end of and then because Felder doesn't have his own brain and is just doing the job for, just to collect a check, he then repeats after Bisping because Bisping can't shut up. He then repeats after Bisping, "Yeah, this fight is very close. I wonder how the judges are going to score this." He's up 20 strikes on Spann. And then Brendan Fitzgerald, because he apparently just wants a paycheck and doesn't really care about fighting, he then goes, "Oh my God, we'll see how this looks." Not pointing to the strike numbers. And then the UFC, just because I want to be fair in how I say this, because maybe they want to paint it a certain way, or maybe they're just incompetent back there, whoever's judging up the numbers, they then give out they then put the stat numbers in a way to where it makes it look even, instead of giving us the strike 3 numbers. All they had to do was just give us who outstruck who in each round, and we wouldn't even care. We would all just be like, "Oh shit, Spann lost us and we can go home." No, they don't put that there. And then the crowd acts like the stupid fucking crowd tonight, by the way. I like the Japanese crowd better, where they just shut the fuck up. This crowd tonight, every single time a strike was thrown, blocked, parried, missed, they fucking howled. This crowd, who just cheered for anything, howled. And then they had the audacity to then act like this was a robbery, because Spann made the goofy face of going, "Huh? Huh?" And this isn't like Saif Saud was like, "Oh my God, what are you guys thinking?" No. There's been worse. He probably in his head was like, "No, dude, Spann's getting hit and not hitting back." I'm sure he's sitting there going, "Yo, Spann lost this fight." I know for a fact he'll watch his back and he'll be like, "You lost this fight. What the fuck are you talking about?" But whatever, that's a separate point. Let's talk about the fight, because apparently this round is close. It's the closest round since sliced bread. It's the closest round since ever. We start off with round 1. I had this 29-28 for Smith. First round, and the third round for Smith. We're going to start off with round 1, where Smith outstrikes... Smith is... Spann cannot beat Smith because he sucks. Sorry, no, I shouldn't have said it. Because I'll explain in a second. Smith is outstriking Spann by a lot. And then he gets a takedown. Boom. Second round, Spann outstrikes Smith. Now, I can't give you the total numbers, but here's essentially how this is going. Smith is barely outstriking Spann. Then Smith lands two heavy shots on Spann, and then goes into a little flurry. I'm sorry, Spann lands a couple heavy shots on Smith, then goes into a flurry. And then, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but after that whole little flurry where Spann jumps on top of Smith and proceeds to not go forward, Spann is deceptively and slowly getting outstruck by Smith with one eye. And just occasionally landing on Smith. So, you're right. Just by the nature of the round, you're supposed to give it to Smith. You're supposed to give it to Spann. But Spann, by the end of that second round, is getting outstruck by Smith. It's weird. You then go to round 3, where the start of the round, Bisping says, hey, Smith has to stop covering up so long. It's weird. Smith covers up, and I'm looking at Spann, and he decides not to throw. Smith covers up for maybe, I want to say like 3 seconds, 3 good long seconds. And I don't mean covers up in a deceptive way if he's going to throw a hook and land something cute. No, he covers up and he's just like, he's there. And Spann has no cardio. You can see it. He has no cardio. And what happens? Smith slowly outstrikes him to the point where he starts to really gain speed and starts to outstrike Spann. Spann then occasionally lands a shot and the crowd goes wild and the crowd goes crazy while Smith is outstriking him. But he looks weird because every time he's outstriking him, he covers up. He outstrikes him and then he covers up. He outstrikes him and then he covers up. This is the age-old tale of like, okay, the guy who's getting... the guy who's being the aggressor getting outstruck. This is what this is, except Spann is slow and he has no cardio. And the optics look bad for Smith because he keeps covering up, but he genuinely outstruck Smith by about 20 plus strikes. But everyone disagrees for some reason. And then that's how you get this weird thing where everyone thinks that Spann got robbed for some reason. We go to the scorecards. Where Mark Collette, his scorecard reflects mine, 29-28. Luke Hill, his scorecard reflects mine, 29-28. And then Vito Paillo gives the last round. He gives the first round to Smith, second round to Spann, gives the last round to Spann. Honorable mention, this is fucking ridiculous. It's stupid. And if all three had just... if it would have been unanimous for Smith, Spann would have still made the stupid face of like, oh, I got robbed. No, you lost. You lost this. But whatever. This shit pisses me off. He was getting outstruck and everyone is just saying the opposite of what's going on the screen. What's going on in your face? It's almost like the commentary aren't even watching the fight. It's almost like they're just fucking interpreting whatever the fuck they want to interpret. But, there's that. Go to the next honorable mention. The last one, Holloway versus Korean Zombie. This fight ended in a beautiful. It's sad in some points, but it was beautiful. Holloway he knocked out Korean Zombie in the third round. First 2 rounds, 10-9, simple. First round, Holloway outstruck Korean Zombie. They made it sound closer than it actually was. Right there, again, commentary being stupid. Bisping going, oh, it's close. It wasn't close. Holloway was outstriking Korean Zombie well enough to win that round. We go to the second round. He's outstriking him again. This time he drops him. At first I didn't notice the drop. It was so quick. The UFC do this thing sometimes that annoys me where the camera angle switches like right when a drop happens. It's like, fuck, dude, why'd you do that? Anyways, they did that. And I was like, did he drop him? Did he drop it? He did drop him. He drops him and he outstrikes him. Holloway also had a submission attempt that definitely wasn't in because Korean Zombie got out of it. And then in the third round, you guessed it. You didn't guess it, actually, because it made no sense when I saw it. Korean Zombie comes out and just starts throwing like this was his fight with Yair. Not the same result. Actually, the same result. It's the same exact result where he gets knocked out clean. And boom, he loses. You go to the judges' scorecards where niggas just can't score. I don't understand what's going on. David Lethaby, he gives the first round to Holloway. He gives the second round to Holloway as well, but he gives him a 10-8. What? You're right. He outstrikes him, he drops him, and then he has that submission attempt, but Korean Zombie gets out of it. It's an unnecessary 10-8. Honorable mention. It's unnecessary. Clemens Warner, his scorecard reflects mine. 10-8, 10-9s in the first 2 rounds for Holloway. And then Ben Carlitz gives a 10-9 in the second for Holloway. Gives a 10-9 to Korean Zombie in the first. Honorable mention, Ben Carlitz. That's also stupid. That's the end of it. We'll be back next week for hopefully another early fight night that ends early. This fight night just reminds me of basically, or the next fight night reminds me of Tabura versus Aspinall, because Spivak versus Cyril Gane has that written all over it. But that's all I got. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.